right, Take Me in the Lifeboat. This one is really chock full of great double stops and some very aggressive ideas. I love the way Bobby Hicks plays this solo here. So it's going to start on a G chord. We're in the key of G. And this is a pretty typical way to start a break. It's on the notes D on the A string and G on the E string. Now to really tune that, you can tune the D first by matching the open string below. So play it as a double stop, open D and D on the A string. If it's ringing a little like this, move it around until you can find that, right? Once that note's in tune, then you can tune the G to it. Make sure that's nice and in tune. Alright, so that's how he starts, really aggressively playing this note twice, these two notes twice. But the second time he adds this little slide into the D note. He's going from D flat to D, but he's planting the second finger on the E string still. So the way we get that is by keeping that G note on the E string still, but moving our third finger back. Alright, so that's how we're getting that sound in the beginning. Really aggressive way to start off. And then it keeps with that aggression with this, that's achieved by playing these fourths, and we're about to go to fifths by doing this little thing. So what's happening there? Well, it's this kind of common lick that you hear. We all kind of know that bluegrass has a lot of that kind of sliding major, minor, third stuff. What he does here is he plays that lick, but with the basically putting this finger across both the A and the E string. So we get a fifth, the interval of a fifth, and on both the major third and the flat third. And what that really is doing is the major third you're harmonizing with the major 7, and then you're flattening it. So the flat third you're harmonizing with the flat 7, which is a really bluesy note. And then we resolve to the G there, a single note G. So that idea is a gem in this solo, because you can take that and apply it in a lot of different settings. First of all, anytime you do any idea that uses the third of a lick that uses the third or the flat third and the third, you can add the fifth above no matter what key you're in to get that sound. And you can do it up or down. Alright, so if we just transfer that to a few different keys, we go up a key to A, well, right, the third in A is the C note or the C sharp note, so we can play both the C and the G above and do that kind of thing. So that sort of sound there is really neat. You can kind of add that to blues up your phrase. If we're in the key of B, it's a little bit more challenging, but we have our first finger on the note B, and the third of B is this D and D sharp. So if we kind of put our third finger on both strings, a little bit harder to play, but you get... If you're aggressive enough about it, you can kind of pull some great tone out of that. And some, of course, in other keys, if you take the original idea of using a first finger, that will give us the key of C. Right? We can get that sound in C. We can get the sound in D by doing F natural and F sharp. Alright, and then we could also get it on G down here as well. A lot of fun you can have with that fifth sound. That really, to me, is a big part of this kind of aggressive bluegrass fiddle sound. So anyway, I would say that's the biggest really takeaway of this tune, is that idea, which you can kind of extract from this solo and apply it elsewhere. But let's get back to what he plays. So he goes... Now we're going to be on the C chord, which he starts on the third of the C chord, the note E. Just climbing up there. Alright? And then, C chord being... He's outlining that. But he's going to go up to the B flat here, which is a C. It's making that moment a little bit more bluesy. We're making that C chord a C7 chord, a C dominant chord. That's what he's outlining. So that's a B flat, a low one on the A string. And I believe he does this all in one bow. Alright, so kind of climbing down from B flat after that then B flat down. And then he skips down to the note E. And then skips back up to the note G. And he ends on the note D, but he doesn't use an open D. He actually does a unison with a fourth finger on the G string and the open D at the same time. So the way we create that real nice fiddle sound is by starting from beneath the note, closer to where a D flat or C sharp would be, and then you're sliding into it. So that whole lick goes like this. Yeah, so all on an up bow and then kind of resolving on the down bow. That's likely the bowing he's doing here. It might be something different. A little bit harder to do slow, requires some bow control, but Bobby Hicks is really a master of the bow as well, so being able to do that in one bow is something I'm sure he'd be able to do, even if it's not exactly the bowing he did. Alright, so far we have this. This kind of marks the midpoint of the solo. Now we're going to go from the next phrase starts on open D and climbs down to the B note. And then back to D. Now he's employing a bowing here. I'll show you kind of the rest of the phrase, and then we'll talk about that bowing a little bit more. You can kind of hear the pattern there. Down, up, da 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 da. Right? It's a pretty clear pattern there. But the bowing we're using in this moment is called the Georgia Shuffle. Now this is one of the 3 essential bluegrass bowings that I talk a lot about. I have a separate video on that if you're interested in. It's essentially a down bow on the backbeat and everything else is slurred up bow. So it starts on the backbeat here. So that bowing there is worth extracting again from this one lick into your practice. One thing you could do to practice is just to restrict yourself to only using that bowing and then maybe just kind of noodle around on a scale like the G pentatonic scale. So I'm restricting myself to only using that Georgia Shuffle, and by being in my practice kind of particular about practicing that bowing outside of a context, a specific context, it's going to come out in my improvisation a lot more. I do that with all sorts of bowings, but that's one example of that. That's again called the Georgia Shuffle. Alright, so the notes in this lick here is, we're starting on D. It's actually on the upbeat, so like So you can see that bowing there. So the kind of second part is from the G note, climbing up to the G note. And then from A note. And then he just plays that E note with his fourth finger because we're kind of coming back to the D note. Yeah? So, by the way, if this is a quick pace, feel free to kind of go back or slow down this video to figure out these licks a little bit more clearly. I would recommend that even listening to this and singing along would be a really good thing. Oftentimes, the way that I learn these breaks is by putting it on repeat at, say, 30-50% speed and just singing along with it first before I even touch my instrument. So you can do that with this video as well, and then kind of come to your instrument after you sort of learn the what it's supposed to sound like. So you can kind of hear the pattern there in the notes and with the bowing. But the next kind of part here is that same double stop we started on, the G on the E string and D on the A string, but he's going to actually start with a little suspension. It's going to be the E note on the on the A string, which is a fourth finger. So that gives you an E and a G at the same time. And he just kind of uses that as a suspension above the G chord. So that's after this little lick here. So let's talk about this moment here. After the suspension, he does that fifth thing again with the flat third into the major third. I guess the first time we were going down. This time it's going up. Let's see. Yeah, so it's just slide up and then open A down to the G note. And then he plays the E note before going to the D chord, the halfway point of the solo. And the way he plays this D chord, he goes into either third or second position. He's playing the D note on the A string and the A note on the D string. But he kind of slides into it like this. Went a little past it there, sorry. Alright, so he's kind of getting there. I'm playing that with my first finger on the A string and my second finger on the D string. But you could also do it with a third finger on the A string and second finger on the A string and third finger on the D string. That could be a preference. It sort of depends. They both unlock different licks you can play out of that. But he just stays on that chord, so either choice is good. I tend to use first and second finger. Alright, and then he gets out of that by doing the reverse, like to slide down to our open D and A string. That's something you can practice. You get the full sound there. So that full lick is try that one. It's a tough one, worthy of slowing down and really practicing. Anyway, we basically restart from the beginning now. This is the second half of the solo. Sort of, I believe it's exactly the same as the first part. So that's exactly the same as the first part. And here's the final lick. I break it into 2 or 3 chunks. So the first one starts on, it sounds like this. Alright, so the way he plays that, again, he's hinting at this fifth sound, but this time he's starting on the major third, the B note, with an F sharp above. And he's actually going to bring that fifth sound up to the C and the G note. And then also play it on open A and E. Again, really aggressive. And then we're going to go to the G note. So G, F sharp, D. This is kind of on the, I believe it's on the D chord at the end. And then we end on the G note. Now that would be a great place for any normal fiddle player to end. It's the sort of how the melody ends. And you could end there just fine. That would be a great passable solo. But typical Bobby Hicks style, he's going to add a ton of great licks afterwards. So instead of landing and staying on that note, he does a couple great licks afterwards. He climbs down. He just barely touches the note that's the resolution to that previous idea and goes right into his next lick, which is a triplet. Triplet, and then we end on the D note there. Alright, so then we're going to climb down to the B note. That's a great little lick to steal on its own. B to a G, and then climbing back up. So that's a lick in itself. It's, again, you can end the song there. But again, he keeps adding more exciting things here. So that's one lick you can kind of take out of, you can play that in A. That's a great, same fingers for the, if you were in the key of A. You want to put that in your repertoire. Same thing for D. So that's a standalone lick right there. And then this next one, he's going to, basically is the third tag lick. He goes... yeah, so he goes kind of does an arpeggio, a G major 7 arpeggio. F sharp there. And then the next arpeggio. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so the next one is just a G major arpeggio. So G, B, D, G. Oh, you know what? It's actually a G pentatonic scale. Sorry about that. That's it. So it's pentatonic scale note for note. And again, pentatonic scale is first note, second note of a scale, third note of the scale, fifth note of the scale. That's the pentatonic scale. Oh, actually, sorry, and then the sixth. Okay, so we're going to end on the G note there. We're not going to complete the pentatonic scale, but it's coming from that scale. Okay, that's another lick on its own. Right, you can do that in any key. You can do it in C. Or, yeah, you can transpose it as well. But anyway, again, he does another lick here, and it sounds like this. Just kind of a bunch of stringy G notes, right? But he does an interesting thing here. He goes, he plays a C sharp, which is not in the key. Who knows if that's intentional or not? I think it's a pretty hip thing. It kind of hints at maybe the G blues, right? Kind of hinting at that sound. But he keeps everything else major, so it's just an interesting little thing here. That would be what's called a, what's the term? That sound he's kind of hinting at. It's a very bright sound. It's used in the tune Garfield's Blackberry Blossom, which is a great tune. And he uses this sound, Lydian or Lydian dominant. It's kind of the sound he's using there. Anyway, no, not to get too theoretical on you. Kind of goes down a G pentatonic or a mostly pentatonic or some major scale. Sort of arriving at the B note. And climbing up to an E note, which is from a G6. That sound. And then arrives finally at home there. So anyway, lots of different ideas. Feel free to slow down this video and watch my fingers and listen again and over again. If there's anything I'd encourage you to do is maybe sing along with some of this and sing along with the original solo a bunch of times at a slow speed. And that could be a practice session in itself, just listening. So good luck with this one. Thanks for watching.